The first time I saw her, I was standing behind the counter of the gas station, chewing a piece of cinnamon gum like it could hold my soul together. She walked in with the wind. Literally. The door creaked open, and this gust of October air followed her inside like a loyal dog, brushing past my arms, smelling like crushed leaves and something darker. She was tall, lean, dressed in all black like the cliché of every city woman who stumbles into a place like Gravenmore and instantly hates it. But she didn't look like she hated it. She looked like she'd been expecting it. Like the town was some tragic novel she'd already read and decided to reread anyway. I don't believe in fate. Not really. But something deep in my gut coiled and whispered her name before she even said it aloud. Stella Morgenstern, literature professor. Moved into the old McAllister house up by the woods. The house that everyone said was haunted, cursed, or both. I wasn't the only one watching her. This town devours new people like meat. But none of them looked at her the way I did. None of them felt the way I did. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the usual reasons: the ache in my bones, the fire in my blood, the pull of the moon already beginning to stir. No. It was her. Her voice, deep and smooth like ink bleeding into paper. Her scent, vanilla and something floral, something sharp. She smelled like secrets. Dangerous ones. And for the first time in months, I wanted something badly enough to forget how dangerous I was. The next day, I went to the high school. Not because I cared about the football game or the bake sale or whatever else they were pretending was important. I went because I knew she'd be there. And she was. Sitting in the bleachers, hair up in a messy knot, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She looked completely out of place. She looked perfect. I was too much of a coward to talk to her. For days, weeks, I'd see her at the diner, or walking her dog, or browsing the used bookstore downtown. Always alone. Always wrapped in shadows like a cloak. And every time I saw her, something inside me twisted tighter. Like I was being pulled by some invisible thread, closer and closer to the edge of something I wasn't ready to name. Until finally, I couldn't take it anymore. It was just past midnight when I knocked on her door. I had no excuse, no reason, just this wild, stupid hope that maybe she'd look at me the way I looked at her. She opened the door barefoot, wearing a faded Bowie t-shirt and black leggings. Her hair was down, slightly damp. She looked softer than usual. Human. Breakable. Luna, she said, frowning slightly. My name sounded like velvet in her mouth. I'm sorry, I stammered. I had to say something. I can't keep pretending. She raised an eyebrow, lips parting like she already knew what was coming. I like you, I said. More than I should. And I know you probably think I'm just some stupid kid from a town you don't care about, but I needed you to know. She was quiet for a long time. Then she stepped back and said, "Come in." Her house smelled like cedar and candle wax. There were books everywhere, records, crystals by the window. The kind of place that felt lived in, sacred. She sat across from me, cross-legged on a velvet couch, and I tried not to shake. "Luna," she said softly, "you're not stupid. And I'm flattered. I am. But I can't." My throat closed. Why? Because I'm not who you think I am. And I can't be what you need. You should forget me. I can't, I whispered. You have to. Her voice cracked. Please. I ran out before I could start crying. The night swallowed me whole. I ran and ran until the trees blurred and the stars disappeared behind clouds. The moon, heavy and nearly full, hung above me like an accusation. I didn't change that night, but I felt it closer than ever. The pull, the heat, the hunger. And when the full moon rose 2 nights later, I didn't stand a chance. I don't remember the shift. I never do. Just the burning, the tearing, the roar of my own scream being replaced by something primal. The next thing I knew, I was waking up naked in the woods. Blood in my mouth, dirt under my nails. My heart thundered in my chest. I looked around, panicked. Tracks, wolf tracks. My own. Leading toward the McAllister house. Toward Stella. I scrambled to my feet, ran. Her front door was closed. Scratched. Deep gouges in the wood, like claws had raked it. My claws. And Stella was gone. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The thought of walking back into my room, peeling off the dried mud and blood, looking in the mirror and seeing whatever version of myself had clawed at Stella's door, it made me sick. So I sat there, under a pine tree with bark digging into my spine, naked and shivering and trying not to scream. I tried to convince myself that maybe she left for a trip. Maybe she saw the scratches and got scared and packed up. Maybe she wasn't even home that night. But I knew better. My body knew. My blood knew. I had gone to her. The wolf had gone to her. And now she was gone. Eventually, I stumbled back into town through a back trail, slipping into my house without waking my aunt. I scrubbed myself raw in the shower, watching the water turn red and brown, and then finally clear. I threw away the towel, burned the clothes. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. The next morning, Gravenmore buzzed like a nest poked with a stick. The high school was closed. Word was spreading fast. Stella Morgenstern, the new literature teacher, hadn't shown up to class. Hadn't called. Hadn't been seen since the weekend. I sat behind the counter at the gas station again, watching people whisper near the coffee machine, watching the sheriff's cruiser drive slowly down Main Street. Every time the door opened, I flinched. Every set of footsteps made my stomach knot. No one knew. No one could know. I kept telling myself I hadn't hurt her. Just scared her. Just scared her enough to run. But even that felt like a lie. Around noon, I saw Sheriff Lindell talking to one of the women from the school board. His voice was low but urgent. House was locked from the inside. No sign of struggle, no forced entry. Just gone. Then he glanced toward the woods. And something clawed the door pretty bad. My mouth went dry. That night, I went back. I waited until the moon was nowhere in sight, clouds covering the sky like a shroud, and I made my way to the McAllister house again. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. A note? A scent? A sign that she hadn't just evaporated? The house loomed at the edge of the trees like a memory I couldn't quite touch. Her porch creaked under my boots. The door was still locked, still scratched, deep, wide marks across the wood. I pressed my fingers to one. They fit too well. I swallowed the guilt like acid. I picked the lock. I don't know how. I'd never done it before. But something inside me, something wolfish, seemed to guide my fingers. The house was cold. Too cold. Like no one had been in it for days. The air smelled faintly of her still, rosewater, sandalwood, and something electric, but it was fading. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost. Her living room was neat, like always. Her record player still had a vinyl on it, Fleetwood Mac, paused mid-track. I ran my fingers along the spines of her books, lingering on titles she'd probably read a dozen times. Jane Eyre. The Secret History. Wuthering Heights. I stopped at a framed photo on her desk. Stella, much younger, standing beside an older woman with the same dark eyes. Her mother? A sister? She was smiling. Not the tight-lipped, careful smile I'd seen in town, but something freer. I didn't know her at all. Upstairs, her bedroom was untouched. Bed made, candles melted down, closet door ajar. I opened it slowly. Inside, tucked behind coats and scarves, was a locked wooden box. Something about it felt strange. Humming, almost, like the air around it pulsed faintly. I didn't dare open it. Not yet. I pocketed it. Then I saw it on her nightstand. A notebook. Leather-bound. I flipped it open. Pages and pages of handwritten notes, dated and organized. Names. Symbols. Full moons. Rituals. The Corvetti bloodline. Recessive but unstable. Dangerous when triggered. My name. My last name. I froze. Turned the page. There were drawings, wolves, runes, something that looked like the night sky mapped with circles and jagged lines. One passage was underlined twice. She doesn't know what she is. If I get too close, she'll break. Or worse, she'll break me. I sat down on her bed, dizzy. She knew. She knew what I was. She'd known the whole time. I thought I was the one with the secret. But Stella Morgenstern had been studying me, watching me, and still she let me get close. Still, she opened the door when I knocked. Still, she told me to forget her. Not for her sake, but mine. And now she was gone. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed with the notebook clutched to my chest. I had no memory of falling asleep. No memory of walking home. But there were pine needles in my hair. That day at the station, a stranger came in. A woman in a long gray coat, silver hair in a braid down her back, sharp eyes that seemed to cut right through me. "You're Luna Corvetti," she said. It wasn't a question. "Who are you?" I asked. She smiled without warmth. "I'm someone who's been waiting for you to stop pretending you don't feel it." Feel what? The hunger. The pull. The wild.
She leaned in.
"You're not the only one in this town with teeth, little wolf." My blood turned to ice. She walked out without another word. That night, I went back to the woods. To the place where I'd woken up. The air felt heavier. Charged. I closed my eyes and tried to remember, tried to feel what the wolf had felt. I smelled something. Not blood. Not dirt.
Vanilla.
Flowers.
Stella.
I followed it, heart pounding, deeper into the woods than I'd ever gone. And then I saw it carved into a tree. A symbol. One from her notebook. Glowing faintly. Leading me forward. The air changed the deeper I walked into the woods. It wasn't colder, not exactly, but heavier. Like something ancient had stirred the moment I touched the carved symbol and started moving toward it. The scent of Stella lingered faintly in the air, like a memory stitched into the wind, floral, soft, just enough to pull me forward. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the sick hope blooming in my chest, that she was still out there. That somehow, I hadn't destroyed the only person who ever looked at me like I was more than the monster I tried to hide. The trees grew closer together, like bones arching over a hidden artery in the land. The moon wasn't full anymore, but it still watched from behind thin clouds, a pale eye I couldn't escape. I found the second symbol carved into a low stone near a creek. Then a third one, etched into a dead tree split down the center. Each one pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. I didn't need a map. My body knew the path. Something in my blood, my bones, responded to it. And then I saw it. A circle of stones in a clearing I'd never seen before, even though I'd grown up in Gravenmoor and wandered every inch of its woods. The stones were ancient, taller than me, covered in moss and runes that matched Stella's notebook. In the center was a hollow, a depression in the earth that smelled of ash, flowers, and iron. Something had happened here. Something sacred. Something violent. I stepped into the circle, and my head spun. Visions, not memories, not mine, flashed behind my eyes. A woman screaming under a blood-red moon. Wolves circling a fire. Two hands clutching each other before being torn apart. A voice, familiar and low, whispering, "You weren't supposed to change yet." I fell to my knees, gasping, and the scent hit me again, stronger now. Stella had been here. Recently. Her essence clung to the stones, to the ground, like a scream trapped in silence. My chest ached. I pressed my palm to the earth, and the runes glowed. Just for a second. Then they went still. "You found it," said a voice behind me. I spun, heart hammering. The woman from the gas station stood just outside the circle, arms crossed. Her gray braid shimmered in the moonlight. "What is this place?" I demanded. "Old magic," she said. "Older than this town. Older than your family. Older than you can imagine." "And what does it have to do with Stella?" Her eyes narrowed. "Everything. She brought you here, didn't she? Even if she didn't mean to. Even if she tried not to." "She's missing," I said. "Gone." And I think I heard her. I think I changed and my voice broke. I think I scared her away. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. "You didn't scare her," the woman said, walking closer. "You scared them. Them? The ones who've been watching your bloodline. The ones who let you believe you were alone. I stared at her.
Who are you?
Call me Mara, she said. I was like you once.
Wild.
Untamed. Hungry. But I had a guide. You didn't. Stella was trying to warn me, I whispered. She knew. She wrote about my family. She called me dangerous. You are, Mara said, not unkindly. But so is she. I blinked. What? Mara stepped into the circle. The runes didn't glow for her. Stella comes from an old bloodline too. Not like yours, but close. She's not entirely human either, Luna. That's not possible. It is. She's a binding witch. One of the last. Her power is to contain things. Seal them. She spent her life trying to keep things from breaking loose. And she's spent every second since she met you trying not to fall apart. My breath caught. She said she couldn't get involved. That she had secrets. She meant it. But she didn't leave, Luna. She was taken. I felt cold all over. By who? By the ones she was trying to protect you from. The ones who want to harness what you are and bury what she is. Mara crouched beside me. The full moon broke the seal she'd placed on you. That's why your change came early. You were never meant to shift this soon. She was holding you back to protect you and herself. I closed my eyes, the guilt unbearable. And now she's gone because of me. No, Mara said firmly. She's gone because of them. You still have time, but not much. Time to do what? To find her. To finish the bond she tried to suppress. Bond, I echoed. You feel it, don't you? That pull toward her. It's not just lust or longing. It's deeper. She was always meant to find you, and you were always meant to choose her. My heart thudded violently. I don't even know where to begin. Mara pulled a pendant from around her neck. It glowed faintly, like the runes.
Take this.
It'll guide you to her, but only if your intention is pure. You can't want her because you're lonely. You can't chase her because you're afraid of being alone. You have to love her, even if she never forgives you. I took the pendant. It was warm, familiar, like something I'd already held in a dream. I do love her, I whispered, even if she's never mine. Then that's where you start, Mara said. But be warned, what's coming will test every piece of you. The next full moon is when the veil between our kind and theirs thins. If you don't find her by then, you won't just lose her. You'll lose yourself. The pendant pulsed in my hand. I looked back toward the path. My voice was shaking. And what happens if I do find her? Mara smiled, and for the first time, it was gentle. Then maybe the girl who rejected you will finally let herself love the wolf she was never supposed to want. I didn't go home again. Home didn't mean anything anymore. Not when the girl I loved had been taken. Not when the wolf inside me had tasted her scent and now hungered for something far deeper than flesh. I walked through the woods with Mara's pendant clutched in my palm like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. It glowed faintly, just enough to see in the dark, pulling me forward like a compass made of longing. I didn't know where it was leading me, only that I had to follow. I barely slept. When I did, my dreams were full of her, Stella's eyes, sharp and unreadable, softening just slightly when she looked at me. Her voice sang my name like it meant something. Her mouth inches from mine, but never closer. In every dream, I reached for her, and in every dream, she disappeared. The third night, I woke to the sound of footsteps. Not mine, not Mara's. Heavier, faster. I rolled off the dirt-covered patch I'd been resting on and ducked behind a fallen tree, heart pounding. There were 3 of them. Men. Dressed in black with rifles strapped across their backs. Their boots crushed the undergrowth without care. They weren't hikers. They weren't cops. They were hunters. She passed through here, one of them said, crouching to inspect the ground. Fresh tracks. Heavy. She's changing faster now. She doesn't even know how to cover her scent, said another. Amateur. We should have taken her instead of the witch. No, the third said sharply. The witch's leverage. If we can't control the wolf, maybe the witch can. My breath caught. My claws twitched under my skin, begging to surface. But I stayed still, quiet. Rage and terror churned together in my stomach like poison. They had Stella. They were using her.
For me.
I waited until they passed, then doubled back, moving in the opposite direction. I needed help. Mara.
She would know what to do.
I found her near the old circle again, tending to a fire that didn't give off any smoke. They took her, I said breathlessly. They have Stella, and they're hunting me now. Mara didn't look surprised. The Brotherhood, she muttered. They've been in this town longer than anyone admits. Passed down through generations, priests, hunters, even teachers. Anyone who believes the only way to control power is to cage it or kill it. And Stella? She's the last of her line. Binding witches have always been a threat to them. Too much knowledge. Too much control. I swallowed hard. What will they do to her? Mara's silence said enough. Then help me, I begged. Tell me where they've taken her. Mara looked at me, long and slow. I can't. Not directly. But I can show you what you need to become in order to survive what's coming. I don't have time for riddles. It's not a riddle, Luna. It's a choice. She stepped aside, revealing a shallow pit behind her. Inside, glowing faintly, were bones. Human bones. Arranged in a circle. This is where she tried to bind you, Mara said. Months ago. Before you even met.
Before you were aware.
Stella came here, bled here, whispered your name into the dirt, and begged the forest to be merciful to you. I stared at the bones, horrified and reverent all at once. Why? Because your change was inevitable. But she thought if she tied part of herself to you, maybe you'd have a chance at controlling it. Maybe you wouldn't have to suffer the way others did. The way I did. Then why didn't she tell me? Because she was scared. Of you. Of herself. Of what you might become if you felt too much too fast. My throat burned. I need her. Then let the wolf rise, Mara said simply. Stop fighting it. Use it. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to stay human. To cling to the last shred of normal. But normal hadn't saved Stella. Normal hadn't stopped me from tearing at her door. Normal wouldn't keep her alive. I stepped into the pit. The air thickened, pressing against my skin like water. The pendant flared bright, then vanished into dust. Pain bloomed in my spine, my ribs, my skull. It wasn't a full moon. But the wolf didn't care. The transformation ripped through me faster than before. Less resistance. My body knew the shape now. Knew the hunger. My nails blackened and curved. My vision sharpened. My hearing expanded in every direction until I could hear a mouse scurry from yards away. But most of all, I smelled her.
Stella. Clothes.
Bleeding. I let the wolf take control. I ran. Faster than I thought possible. My limbs barely touched the ground. I crossed the entire western edge of Gravenmoor in minutes, reaching an abandoned church tucked behind a ridge. That's where the scent led. That's where the Brotherhood had taken her. I shifted back just outside the door, body trembling, skin slick with sweat and dirt. I didn't have clothes. Didn't have a weapon. Just rage. I crept around the side, peering through a broken, stained glass window. Stella was there, tied to a chair. Blood on her temple. Her head low, but her chest rising.
Alive.
One of the men stood in front of her, yelling. You think she's coming for you? That mutt doesn't even know what you are. Stella raised her head slowly. Her lip was cracked. Her voice was barely audible, but it still cut like a knife. She knows more than you ever will. The man slapped her hard. My vision went red. I didn't wait. I shifted mid-sprint, crashing through the window in a fury of teeth and claws. The first man didn't have time to scream. The second shot at me, but the bullet only grazed my shoulder before I was on him.
Blood. Roar. Bone.
The third ran. Coward. I didn't chase him.
Not yet.
Stella. I turned to her, panting. She was staring at me, not with fear, but with something else. Wonder. Recognition.
Love.
Luna, she whispered. I shifted again, collapsing to my knees in front of her, naked, shaking, broken. I'm sorry, I sobbed. I couldn't protect you. I wasn't enough. You were always enough, she said, reaching up to touch my face. I just didn't know how to let myself be yours. I rested my forehead against hers, her blood smearing onto my skin like a vow. Then don't run this time. She exhaled shakily. I won't. I can't. We didn't have time to breathe. I pressed my forehead against hers, trying to memorize the shape of her breathing, the warmth of her skin, the exact weight of her presence before reality slammed back into us. We have to go, I whispered. They'll be back. Stella nodded slowly, though her legs trembled when I helped her up. Blood streaked her temple, and she leaned into me more than she probably wanted to. I didn't care. I wrapped one arm around her waist, pulling her close, and we slipped out the side door into the night. The forest swallowed us in seconds. My senses were still sharpened from the shift, so I could hear movement in the distance, other footsteps, shouts. The Brotherhood wasn't done. They never would be. Stella stumbled, and I caught her before she hit the ground. We need shelter, she mumbled. Not home. They know it. Somewhere old. Hidden. Mara, I said. She'll help us. Mara's still alive, she asked weakly, surprise cutting through the pain in her voice. She found me. Or maybe I found her. She's been waiting for this. Waiting for us. Stella didn't answer, but I felt her fingers tighten around mine. It wasn't much. It didn't need to be. We made it to Mara's hut by dawn, the first hints of light cutting through the trees like fragile gold. The moment we stepped through the threshold, Mara was already there, preparing a salve. She didn't ask questions, just helped me lay Stella down on a pallet of moss and blankets, then pressed a bowl of something warm into my hands.
Drink.
You're about to crash, she said. She was right. My body was already shutting down. The shift had taken more from me than I realized. I drank. The liquid was bitter, metallic, but my muscles relaxed within minutes. I collapsed beside Stella, unable to keep my eyes open, but just before sleep took me, I felt her fingers graze mine again, curling gently. Hours passed, maybe more. When I woke, the light had shifted, and Mara was gone. Stella sat cross-legged nearby, bruised but alert, flipping through her notebook. My heart ached just looking at her. Hey, I said softly. Her eyes lifted. For a second, there was that guarded expression she always wore, like she was afraid of being seen. But then it softened. Hey, how do you feel? I asked, sitting up. Like I got hit by a truck, she said dryly. But better.
Thanks to you.
I was so afraid I was too late. You weren't. She looked down at her hands. But they'll come back. The Brotherhood never stops. Especially now that you've awakened. You knew it would happen. It wasn't a question. She nodded. Your blood, it's not just wolf. It's something older. Wilder. Your family was part of a forgotten pact centuries ago. The Brotherhood's been trying to erase it ever since. And you were watching me? Protecting you, she corrected. Trying to. The bond between us, it started before you knew. I felt you the moment I arrived in Gravenmore. Like a spark under my skin. I thought I could control it. Keep my distance. Keep you safe. But the bond doesn't care about logic. So, all this time you felt it too? My voice cracked. And you still told me to forget you? Because loving you felt like setting fire to everything I'd spent my life hiding from. She looked at me then, really looked like her soul had been cracked open. And because I knew once I let myself want you, I wouldn't be able to stop. I didn't realize I was crying until she reached out and brushed her thumb across my cheek. It's too late for distance, I said, voice shaking. I already picked you, even before I knew what I was. And I already failed to stay away, she whispered. So maybe it's time to stop pretending. I leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Her lips met mine like something inevitable. No desperation. No fury. Just years of longing finally allowed to breathe. It was gentle, careful, and yet it made my entire body hum with energy. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine.
There's more I need to tell you, she said.
About the bond. About the pact. Then tell me. The bond between a Corvetti and a Morgenstern, it was part of the original seal that kept the rift closed. What rift? Between our world and theirs. The creatures that came before. The ones that made wolves like you. The ones who whisper to hunters in their dreams. They've been trying to return ever since the last binding. And that binding was romantic? I asked. Sacrificial, she said. The Morgenstern gave blood. The Corvetti gave soul. It locked the rift, but also doomed both lines to either repeat the cycle or die out. So we're reliving history, I whispered, but without the choice. That's the thing, Stella said, her voice trembling. We do have a choice. We can bind again, but it has to be willing. It has to be love.
Real. Raw.
Or it won't hold. And if we don't, the rift opens. The Brotherhood wants that. They believe they can control what comes through. But no one can. And what happens if we do bind? We survive. But not unchanged. The bond fuses us. Our power, our souls. It's not something we can undo. Do you want that? I asked. She looked at me for a long time. I want you. In any form. But I won't force this. If you walk away, I'll still fight for you. For this town. Even if it kills me. I stood slowly and crossed the space between us, sinking to my knees in front of her. I took her hands. Then we fight together. We bind together. Whatever it takes. She let out a shaky breath, then pulled me into her arms. For the first time, I didn't feel like a girl hiding a monster inside her. I felt like someone who had finally been seen. Chosen.
Loved.
That night, Mara performed the beginning of the ritual. Not the full binding, it required the next full moon, but something to shield us temporarily. A protection. As we stood in the circle, her chanting soft and rhythmic, Stella slipped her fingers between mine and held tight. Are you ready? She asked. No, I said. But I'm not letting you go again. The air shimmered with magic. The runes glowed. And in that moment, for the first time, I felt the bond not just in my body, but in my soul. We left Mara's hut before dawn, wrapped in cloaks that smelled like smoke and pine and old magic. The forest felt different now, more awake. Every root underfoot, every branch brushing our shoulders, seemed to lean in, listening. I felt it humming beneath my skin. The power Mara had stirred in me, the half-bound tether between my soul and Stella's, not yet complete, but pulsing with something ancient and alive. Stella walked beside me in silence, one hand clutching her notebook, the other never quite letting go of mine. We hadn't talked about the kiss again. We didn't need to. It hung between us like breath in cold air, undeniable, irreversible. The night we spent in Mara's protection circle changed us. We hadn't touched each other since, but everything about the way we moved now had shifted. Our steps matched. Our silence felt shared. And when she looked at me, she didn't look away. Where are we going? I finally asked.
The old archives, she said.
Deep in the catacombs beneath the church ruins. Before the Brotherhood poisoned this town with fear, the archives belonged to the circle of binding, my ancestors. Won't the Brotherhood have them locked down? They abandoned that place decades ago. Too much power they couldn't control. Too many things that couldn't be burned away. And you think we'll find something to help us? I think, she said, glancing at me, we'll find why the bond was created in the first place. And maybe what it's going to cost us. We reached the ruins just as the sun rose in a haze of gold and ash. The old church loomed like a skeleton over the trees, stone walls crumbling, stained glass long shattered, vines crawling across its face like veins. We slipped inside through a broken window, boots crunching on old tile. It was colder here, as if the walls themselves remembered too much. Stella led me past the altar, behind a collapsed pulpit, and down a narrow staircase hidden beneath a rusted trapdoor. The air changed again, thicker, damper, laced with dust and secrets. The catacombs were tighter than I expected. Torches lined the walls, long since dead, but Stella whispered a word in a language I didn't know, and fire sprang to life in her palm. The magic made the shadows flee, but I saw things I wish I hadn't. Bones sealed in niches, symbols carved into the stone, ancient warnings in languages lost. We moved deeper. At the end of the tunnel was a door, twisted iron, marked with a crescent moon and a spiral sun. Stella pressed her hand to it. "It needs both of us," she said. I stepped forward, placing my palm beside hers. The metal pulsed, then clicked. The door opened. Inside, the chamber felt untouched by time. Dust floated like snowflakes in the firelight. Shelves of scrolls and tomes lined the walls. In the center stood a stone pedestal with a single book resting atop it, leather-bound, dark, pulsing softly like it breathed. "The original chronicle," Stella whispered. "The first record of the Corvetti-Morgenstern Pact." She approached it reverently, fingertips trembling as she opened the cover. I moved closer, reading over her shoulder. The pages were filled with ink that shimmered faintly, as if written with stardust and blood. The first entry chilled me. When the rift cracked open, the beasts came through. Unseen, devouring, shifting. Only the blood of the moon and the hand of the binder could seal it. Love freely given would be the price. But love never comes without its shadow. Stella turned the pages slowly, absorbing every word. "They weren't just creating a magical seal," she said. "They were binding two souls. Two people. The kind of bond that's deeper than a spell. That's why it worked. Because it was real. And also why it shattered when that love turned to grief." Grief. The original binder was betrayed. Her mate died during the final sealing. She never recovered. And the line has been cursed with loss ever since. I felt the weight of it settle into my spine. So if we bond, truly bond, we risk that too. "Yes," she said softly. "But if we don't, the rift opens again. And everything they died to protect us from will pour through." We stood in silence for a long time. I reached for her hand, lacing my fingers through hers. "I don't care about a curse," I said. "Not if it means losing you before I've even had a chance to love you properly." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. "You already do," she said. "I feel it. Every time you look at me like I'm something sacred instead of dangerous." "You are dangerous," I murmured. "That's why I love you." Before she could reply, the torchlight flickered. A rush of wind pushed through the chamber. My instinct screamed. Stella froze. "They're here," she whispered. I stepped in front of her. "How did they find us?" "There's a blood mark on me," she said, voice shaking. "They branded me with magic when they took me. I didn't even feel it until now. Then we fight." "You're not fully bound yet, Luna. You're strong, but then they'll bleed first," I growled. I didn't shift. Not fully. But I let the wolf rise just beneath the surface. My nails thickened. My eyes burned gold. My growl echoed off the stone like a war drum. The first man came through the door with a silver dagger, but he never touched me. I slammed him into the wall so hard his bones cracked. The second shot at me, Stella deflected it with a spell that made the bullet shatter midair. We moved together like a dance, fluid, ruthless. I'd never felt more alive. More powerful. More mine. Blood painted the stone floor. The third attacker tried to run, but Stella whispered a single word, and the ground beneath him opened, swallowing his scream. Then silence.
Heavy.
Final. I turned to her. "Are you okay?" "They were scouts," she said breathlessly. "The Brotherhood will send more. Then let's finish this. Let's finish us." She nodded. "We'll bind at the next full moon. No more hiding. No more fear." "We need to be ready," I said. "They'll come for us." "Then let them." Her voice was steel. "Let them see what love looks like when it fights back." We stayed hidden for 3 days, deeper in the forest than I'd ever been, where the trees were thick as cathedrals and the sky barely touched the ground. The forest there didn't just breathe, it remembered. It held stories in its roots, old magic in its leaves. And as much as I hated to admit it, we needed time. Time to heal. Time to prepare. Time to hold each other without knives and blood between us. I didn't ask Stella where she learned to set up protective wards that shimmered like heat waves around our clearing, or how she could summon light from her fingertips like it was nothing. I didn't ask because watching her do it felt like watching someone come alive. Like the person she'd spent her whole life suppressing was finally crawling out of the wreckage, bruised but unbroken. Every night, we slept wrapped around each other, not always in the same way. Sometimes it was tender. Sometimes it was desperate. But always it was hers. I memorized the shape of her scars, the sound of her voice when she read spells under her breath, the quiet way she said my name when she thought I was already asleep. I'd never loved someone like this.
Wild.
Honest. Terrifying. I would have given anything to stay in that sliver of peace, but the world wasn't done with us. It started with birds. 3 of them, black as pitch, circling overhead at dusk. Then the silence came. Not the good kind. The kind that meant something was stalking nearby. Stella felt it too. Her eyes turned sharp, and she pressed her hand to my chest. "The veil is thinning early," she said. "They're pushing it, trying to force the rift open before the moon." "Can they do that?" "Only if someone bleeds willingly." I frowned. "You mean a sacrifice?" She nodded. "Or something worse. A binding without consent." The thought made me sick. "What do we do?" "We bind first. Not the full ritual, not yet. But there's a secondary rite. A blood vow. It won't seal the rift, but it'll keep them from pulling you through it." "Then do it," I said immediately.
Now.
She hesitated. "Once we do this, you'll carry part of me inside you. And I'll carry you. If one of us dies, then we both do," I finished.
Good.
"Let's make it harder for them to kill us." Stella didn't smile, but her eyes softened. We drew a circle together, marked with crushed lavender and salt. She cut her palm with a silver blade. I did the same. Then we pressed our hands together and whispered the vow at the same time. "My blood for yours. My soul with yours. Until the moon breaks, or the earth takes us back." The wind shifted instantly. The trees bent toward us. My skin burned where our blood touched, and then, just like that, it was done. I felt her inside me, like a string tied to my spine. A new kind of gravity. She stepped back, breathing hard. "Now, they can't take you without taking me too." "Let them try," I whispered. "Let them see what we become when we fight together." But that night, my dreams were not my own. I saw fire. I saw Mara kneeling in the ashes of her hut, blood streaking her face, eyes wide with something between fury and grief. And I saw him, a man dressed in white, standing over her, holding the pendant that had once led me to Stella. He crushed it in his fist. When I woke, I was already halfway out of the clearing. Stella caught up to me, breathless. "You felt it too?" I nodded. "Mara, we have to go." We ran. The forest seemed to open for us, letting us pass like it wanted us to reach her in time. But we were too late. The clearing was scorched. The hut was rubble. And Mara was kneeling in the center, alive but barely. Her left arm hung useless at her side. Her braid was singed. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw fear in them. "They took it," she rasped. "The mirror." Stella went pale. "No, what mirror?" I asked. "It's not a mirror," Stella said, voice low. "It's a veil fragment. A piece of the rift that cracked open during the original breach. It reflects your truest self, and it opens the door." "Why didn't you destroy it?" "Because it's unbreakable. But if they use it during the full moon, they won't need our bond. They'll just drag the creatures through." Mara coughed violently. I knelt beside her, cradling her head. "We'll stop them. Not without loss," she whispered. "The rift, it demands it." "No," I said. "We're done losing people. We end this our way." She smiled faintly. "Then you must choose. Power or mercy." I didn't understand. Not then. But the question clung to me. That night, Stella and I set up camp near the old cemetery, one of the few places untouched by the Brotherhood's magic. The full moon was 4 days away. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. We just held each other and listened to the sound of the wind curling around gravestones, like ghosts remembering how to breathe. "Luna," she said softly, fingers brushing the curve of my jaw. "If something happens to me..." "No, listen." Her voice shook. "I need you to promise me. If they try to use me to open the rift, you'll stop them. Not if it means losing you. Especially if it means losing me. Don't ask me to kill you. I'm not. I'm asking you to love me enough to stop me." I looked away, blinking fast. "You once told me I didn't know who you were," I said. "But I do. You're the girl who walked into a town full of secrets and still tried to protect the one thing she shouldn't have wanted."
"You," she said.
"Me." I leaned in. "And I'm the girl who would burn the world down to make sure no one ever takes you from me again." The kiss this time wasn't gentle. It was messy and deep and full of everything we were too afraid to say. Her hands pulled me close like she was terrified of letting go. Mine mapped the lines of her body like a prayer. When we fell asleep, I dreamed again. But this time, it wasn't fire I saw. It was the rift. Opening. Screaming. And a voice, hers, saying my name like a goodbye. He moved fast, but I moved faster. His blade slashed the air where my chest had been half a second before, and I felt the heat of it skim my skin, but I didn't stop. My body was all instinct now, wolf and woman bound together in something stronger than rage, deeper than blood. My claws tore through his defenses like paper. I didn't kill him. Not yet. I knocked the blade from his hand, slammed him into the dirt, and turned to my aunt, who was still tied to the tree, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did." I snapped the ropes with a single pull, caught her as she sagged forward. "Are you hurt?" "I'm pissed," she muttered. "But I'm breathing." I smiled, even as the air behind us shifted. The man in white was laughing, quiet at first, then louder, as if the sound of his own failure amused him. "You think this was about her?" he spat, rising slowly, brushing dirt from his pristine coat. "She was bait. A message. We don't need your body, little wolf. Just your bond. And now, you've given us everything we need." My stomach turned cold. The clearing darkened, not from clouds or nightfall, but from something else. Something coming. The trees bent inward as if pulled by gravity. The torches flared blue, and I felt it. A crack. In the air. In the earth. In the veil. The bond between me and Stella burned in my chest like a flare, and I knew she felt it too, knew she was already running. "What did you do?" I growled. "What did you open?" He smiled, and this time it was almost reverent. "The mirror was just a key. But your love, that was the door." "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." "It is," came Stella's voice from the edge of the clearing, breathless and sharp. She stepped into the torchlight like a blade unsheathed. "But it won't end the way you think." Her magic surged the moment she crossed into the circle. Runes lit under her feet, some hers, some ancient, older than language, and the energy snapped through the air like lightning. I rushed to her side, heart pounding. "They used our bond." "I know," she said. "I felt it the moment they cracked it. But there's still time. We can still close it."
"How?"
"Together." The sky above us groaned. That's the only word for it, like something too massive and old for the world was shifting just out of sight. And then the rift opened. Not completely, not yet. But I saw it. A tear in the air behind the man in white. Black, rippling, humming with power that didn't belong in this world. From it poured shadows. Not just darkness, but forms. Crawling, stretching, reaching. Not demons. Not animals. Not anything with a name. The Brotherhood's leader turned to face it, arms raised like a priest worshipping the abyss. "They're here," he whispered. "Finally." "Stop him," Stella said. "Hold the circle." I moved before she finished speaking, lunging at him with everything I had left. We collided hard. This time, I didn't hesitate. I drove my claws into his side and ripped. He screamed, loud, gurgling, but still laughed through it. "Too late," he choked. "It's begun." "Then I'll end it with your bones." I growled and finished it. His body dropped in a heap, blood soaking the earth. The moment he died, the circle trembled. The shadows howled, not in grief, in hunger. Stella was already chanting, her voice rising into something primal, ancient. The symbols around us flared bright gold. "Luna," she shouted, "I need your soul." Again. I didn't hesitate. I dropped to my knees beside her, took her hands, and closed my eyes.
"Take it."
All of it. "No," she whispered, her forehead pressed to mine. "Just enough." The moment our bond flared again, the rift reacted. It screamed. The shadows reeled back like burned animals, retreating. But something massive was still trying to come through. A shape. A presence. I could feel its hunger in my bones.
"We can't hold it," she said.
"Not like this. We need more. We need a sacrifice." My blood turned to ice. "No, it doesn't have to be death," she said. "Just anchor. Something powerful enough to hold the rift in place." "Like what?" "Like a soul willing to stay between the worlds." "You're not doing that. You do it for me. I'm not you, Stella." "No," she said softly. "You're better." I grabbed her wrists. "Don't you dare leave me."
"Don't you even think about it."
She smiled, and there was so much pain in it I almost broke. "Then help me hold it. Just long enough to seal it." Together, we stood, shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped. She spoke the words. I poured everything into the bond. Every thought, every fear, every memory of her smile, her kiss, her voice sang my name in the dark. The earth cracked. The rift screamed. The shadows thrashed, clawing at the edge. But we didn't break. Not yet. Mara appeared at the edge of the trees, limping, burned, but alive. She held a staff glowing with the same runes as the chronicle. "You're not alone," she said, and drove the staff into the earth. Light erupted. The rift shook. The presence on the other side shrieked and fell back. The tear closed, inch by inch, burned by love, bound by will. When it was over, we collapsed in a heap, breathless, bodies shaking. My aunt rushed into the clearing and gathered me into her arms, sobbing. Stella leaned into me, eyes fluttering.
"It's closed," she said.
"For now." "We're still here," I whispered. "We're still whole." But something lingered. A residue. The bond had been tested, and something had left a mark. Later, alone with Stella, we lay on the forest floor, hands clasped, bodies sore and bruised and bloody.
"We didn't die," I said.
"No," she murmured. "But we changed. We were already changing. And we'll keep changing." I turned to her, brushing hair from her cheek. "Promise me something. Anything. No more sacrifices." "I can't promise that." "Then promise you'll never leave without saying goodbye." Her eyes filled, but she nodded. "I promise." I kissed her slowly, tasting ash and blood and something fragile that still felt like hope. The sky above us was quiet again, but the full moon hadn't risen yet, and we both knew this wasn't over. The full moon rose like a blade above the trees, sharp and glowing, blood-tinged at the edges as if it had been dipped in every scream we hadn't yet let out. I watched it from the edge of the cemetery, arms wrapped around myself, breath visible in the cold night air. My chest ached, not from fear, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer gravity of what we were about to do. The temporary seal Mara had conjured wouldn't hold past midnight. The veil fragment still vibrated somewhere in the distance, calling to the darkness like a beacon, and we could feel it, the pull, the hunger, the waiting mouths just beyond the edge of reality. We hadn't slept since the rift opened. Neither of us could. We barely spoke, but our silences were no longer empty. They were full of weight, of choice, of understanding. Every time Stella looked at me, I saw the same thing reflected in her gaze. If this was the end, we were going to meet it together. "It's almost time," she said, coming up behind me. I didn't need to turn to feel her presence. Her warmth slid along my skin like memory. "Do you think it'll hurt?" "Everything that's ever mattered has." I finally looked at her. Her hair was braided back, loose strands fluttering like embers in the wind. She wore a cloak lined with binding runes, her spellbook strapped to her hip. But it was her eyes that stopped me.
Fierce.
Unapologetic. Full of fire and fear and love. "You're beautiful," I whispered. She smiled just a little. "You always say that like it's a surprise." "Because it is," I said. "Every time." She reached for me, her fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "After tonight," she murmured, "nothing will be the same." "It never was, Stella. We've already changed everything." "Then let's change the rest." We walked to the circle in silence. Mara was already there, hunched over the runes, reinforcing them with a new layer of salt and ash and blood. Her own. "Are you sure?" she asked, without looking up. "We're beyond sure," Stella answered. Mara gave a single nod. "Once it begins, you don't stop. No hesitation. No fear. No lies. The bond will either close the rift permanently, or it'll be consumed with everything else." "And if it's consumed?" I asked. "Then you'll feel it." Her voice was heavy. "The ripping. The unraveling. The end of what you are." I nodded. I didn't look at Stella. I didn't need to. Her hand found mine and squeezed. That was enough. We stepped into the circle together. The wind went still. The night hushed. Even the moon seemed to draw breath. Stella started the chant. I followed. The words weren't in any language I knew, but they spilled from my lips like I'd known them forever. They wrapped around us like silk, cold and silvery and sharp. The circle glowed white, then red, then something darker. Purple, violet, rift-colored. I felt the bond in my chest ignite. A thread pulled tight between my ribs and hers, humming, trembling. The moon above pulsed like a heartbeat. The earth below cracked. And then the veil split. It didn't open.
Not yet.
But it fractured. A jagged line across the sky, like the world itself was breaking. And from it poured everything. Memories. Screams.
Pain.
Visions of every woman who had ever carried this curse. Of the first Morgenstern bleeding under a tree. Of the first Corvetti howling at the moon as she watched her lover burn. I saw fire. I saw teeth. I saw Stella's face reflected in 1,000 mirrors, and in all of them, she was dying. "Don't let go," I whispered, clutching her hand tighter. "You have to hold on." "I'm trying," she gasped. Her eyes were glowing now, brighter than the runes, brighter than the sky. "It's pulling me."
No. Us.
"It's pulling us. We hold each other, or we lose everything." The bond flared again. Stronger. Angrier. It didn't want to break. But it would if we weren't willing to bleed for it. "Luna," Stella said, her voice breaking, "if I fall, you won't. If I do, take it. Take the bond. Bury it. Hide it. Keep them from ever using it again. You're not going anywhere. Promise me." "No." I let go of her hand. Just for a second. Just long enough to grab both sides of her face and kiss her like it was the last thing holding me to this world. And maybe it was. We end this together. Or not at all. Her breath hitched. "Together," she said. "Then say the words." We screamed them into the night. The final lines of the binding. The invocation that had been waiting for centuries to be completed. The earth trembled. The trees shook. The rift let out a sound that wasn't a roar or a scream. It was a sob. And then the light exploded. White hot. Blinding. Burning. I felt myself split. My body. My heart. My mind. Everything. I was scattered across the sky. I saw my parents. I saw Stella's mother.
I saw the first time I shifted.
The first time I kissed her. The first time I realized I couldn't survive without her. Then I saw the void. The thing behind the veil. The presence we'd never named. It reached for us. Talons of darkness curled around the thread between us. I screamed. But I wasn't alone. Stella reached back. Her hands found mine in the abyss. She pulled. "Luna," she said, and it wasn't just my name, it was a command.
A vow.
A spell. "Come back to me." I did. The rift slammed shut like a wound being stitched from the inside. The light vanished. The wind died. The runes dimmed, and we fell. I woke up first, covered in ash, soaked in sweat, every bone in my body humming like a struck bell. I rolled over and saw her.
Still. Pale.
Her lips bloodless. Stella, I croaked, crawling to her.
No.
No, 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 her chest didn't rise. Her skin was cold. Please, I begged. Please come back. We did it. We won. Come back. I pressed my forehead to hers. The bond inside me was still glowing, but dim.
Faint.
Like an ember fighting to breathe. Take mine, I whispered. If there's not enough, take mine. I don't want it if you're not in it. I kissed her one last time, and the bond flared. She gasped. Her lungs filled. Her hands clutched at mine.
And she lived.
We stayed like that for hours, holding each other in the ruins of what we'd survived. When dawn finally came, Mara limped into the clearing. She smiled. It's over, she said. The rift is sealed. The brotherhood is scattered. I looked at Stella. Her fingers twitched in mine. It's over, I repeated. But I knew it wasn't. Not really. Because love like this doesn't end. It just becomes something bigger, something eternal, something even the dark can't break. We didn't return to Gravenmoor right away. For 3 days after the rift closed, we stayed in the woods, wrapped in silence and one another, as if neither of us trusted the world not to crack open again if we stepped too hard on it. The earth still felt raw beneath us, like a wound that had only barely scabbed over, and even though we had survived, together, I couldn't shake the sense that something had followed us back. Stella barely slept. She said nothing for hours at a time, her eyes glazed over like she was somewhere else, listening to voices I couldn't hear. At night, she woke up shaking, drenched in sweat, whispering words that didn't belong to her. I tried not to panic. I tried to be the strength she had been for me. But every time I touched the bond between us, I felt it flicker. Not broken, not gone, but thinned. Like a thread stretched too far. The night of the 3rd day, I found her by the river, kneeling in the mud with her hands buried in the earth. She didn't look up when I approached. They didn't all go back, she said quietly. What do you mean? When we sealed the rift, something stayed behind. A piece of it. Small. Quiet. But real. I knelt beside her. How do you know? Because it's inside me. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She looked at me, finally, and her eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. Not black. Just tired. Like something was dragging at the edges of her soul. It's not controlling me, she said.
Yet.
But it's trying. It's whispering things. Feeding off the bond. Then we sever it. We can't. Not without killing it. And not without killing what we are. My throat tightened. So what do? We go back to Gravenmoor, she said. We find the origin of the first rift. We find out what was really opened. And then, we decide if we can survive it again. The walk back into town felt like entering a memory that didn't want us anymore. Gravenmoor was quiet, but not in the safe way. People stared from windows. Doors were locked. The Brotherhood was gone. Mara had confirmed it, but their shadow remained. And so did the fear. My aunt hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She didn't say anything about the cuts on my arms, or the black crescent-shaped bruise on my hip, or the way Stella hovered at my side like she wasn't sure which world she belonged to now. She just looked between us and nodded like she understood something no one else ever could. You both need rest, she said. And a bath. Jesus. I laughed, broken and real. We stayed at her house that night, curled together in my old bed, the sheets still smelling like home. Stella was quiet, but when I pulled her into my arms, she didn't resist. I'm still here, she whispered. I know, I said, but you're slipping. I can feel it. Then we fight it, just like everything else. Her hands slid up my back, fingers curling into the edge of my shirt. What if it wins? It won't. How do you know? I leaned in, lips brushing hers, slow and deliberate. Because I'm not letting go. The kiss that followed was soft at first, tentative, then deeper, fuller, hungrier. Not lust. Not just need. It was everything we hadn't had time to say. Everything we'd held back. Her body pressed against mine, skin to skin, soul to soul, and even as I felt the tremor of something ancient shift inside her, I refused to pull away. "I'm still me," she whispered into my mouth. "You always will be. Even if it gets worse? Especially then." We didn't make love that night because it was perfect. We did it because it was necessary. Because we needed to feel alive. To feel chosen. To feel ours. And afterward, when her head rested on my chest and my fingers traced lazy circles on her back, we both fell into the first real sleep we'd had in days. We woke to silence. But not peace. The bond pulsed sharp in my chest. I sat up instantly. Stella stirred. "It's here," she said. "What is?" "The peace that stayed. It's looking for a way out. We stop it." She nodded slowly, already reaching for her clothes. We returned to Mara. She had aged since we last saw her. Lines deeper, voice weaker, but her magic was still fierce.
"There was a second rift," she said.
Not a portal. A vessel. A hollow place the darkness could root itself in if it was shut out from the other side. "And Stella," I said. Mara looked at her, eyes soft. "You were open, vulnerable, full of love. Of course it chose you. Can it be removed?" "Yes," she said, "but not without consequence." "What kind?" Stella asked. "You'll lose part of yourself. The part that bonded to the veil." "The magic," I said. "She'll lose her magic." "More than that," Mara said. "She may lose her memory of the bond entirely. Of you." The silence that followed felt like the longest thing I'd ever endured. Stella didn't speak. Her eyes went distant. "We'll find another way," I said quickly. "There's always another way." "No," she said. "There isn't. You're not choosing this." "I'm choosing you, Luna. Choosing to save you. To protect Gravenmore. To end it. But what if you forget me?" She smiled, tears already slipping down her cheeks. "Then you'll remind me." I broke. Right there. In front of Mara. In front of the forest. In front of the gods, if they were listening. "Please don't do this." "I have to. Let it take me instead." "It won't. It already chose. It's tied to me." I held her like it would stop time. Like it could anchor us to a version of the future where we weren't being torn apart again. But magic never cared about happy endings. "We'll go tomorrow," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "To the source. The origin. We finish it there." That night, we didn't sleep. We just held each other in the dark, saying everything in silence. And when morning came, I knew. This story wasn't done. But we were about to turn the page where everything changed again. We walked back into the woods before dawn. The sky was a shade of violet that felt more like a bruise than a sunrise, and the forest felt different than before, colder, watchful, like it was holding something behind its teeth. Stella was quiet beside me, her step steady but heavy, like each one pulled her deeper into a decision she couldn't undo. I wanted to speak, to tell her again how much I loved her, how I'd find a way to fight this, but she held herself with a kind of fragile stillness that begged not to be broken. We reached the place where the first rift had been opened centuries ago, a narrow clearing surrounded by trees that twisted unnaturally upward, their branches bent like claws. The air was thick with magic, ancient and bitter, the kind that tasted like metal and regret. Mara was already there, standing by a stone altar covered in runes too old to translate. Her face was unreadable. "This is where it began," she said, not looking at us. "The first bond, the first betrayal, the first attempt to contain what was never meant to be caged." Stella stepped forward. "And this is where it ends." "Are you sure?" Mara asked. "There's still time to choose another path." Stella turned to me, and I saw everything in her eyes. The fear. The certainty. The love. "This is the only path left," she said. I swallowed hard. "Then let me do it with you." "No, we're bound." You said we were stronger together. We are. But this isn't strength. It's surrender. And it has to be mine. Mara began the ritual. She lit candles around the stone with flame drawn from her palm, and the fire burned black and silver. She chanted softly, her voice threading through the trees like smoke. Stella stood in the center of the circle, her cloak billowing in the wind that had started to rise from nowhere. I stood outside it, my fists clenched, so tight, I thought they'd break. Stella Morgenstern, Mara said, her voice now louder, fuller. Do you offer your memory, your magic, your soul's thread, to expel what does not belong? I do, Stella replied, her voice clear despite the trembling in her body. And do you understand the cost? That you may forget not only the bond, but the one you love. I do. And do you go willingly? Stella looked at me, just for a second. Then she nodded. I do. I couldn't breathe. I felt the bond between us begin to unravel. Not rip, not tear, but unwind, like silk pulled from a wound. I felt her slipping, memory by memory, kiss by kiss. Her first smile, the way she'd said my name the night she let herself want me. The fire in her eyes when she told me she couldn't stay away. No, I whispered. I ran into the circle before Mara could stop me. I didn't care what it cost. I didn't care what it meant. I grabbed Stella's face in both hands, tears already blinding me. You don't get to forget me, I said. You don't get to love me this much and then leave me behind. Luna, her voice was already different. Distant. You said I'd remind you. So listen to me. I pressed my forehead to hers, trying to hold on to what little time we had left. You found me when I was breaking. You saw me when I didn't want to be seen. You stayed, even when it was easier to run. You kissed me like you meant it. You loved me. I did, she whispered, voice cracking. I do. Then fight. If even a single piece of you remembers me, fight for it. The darkness inside her surged. I felt it, saw it. A shadow bleeding from her mouth, her eyes, her fingers. It screamed, a sound not meant for this world. Mara raised her staff to complete the expulsion, but I shouted over her. Stop. Luna, she'll die if we don't finish it. Then let me anchor it, I said. She doesn't have to lose herself. Not if I give myself instead. It will destroy your soul. Not if it's protected by the bond. Mara hesitated. The wind howled. The ground cracked beneath Stella's feet. Please, I begged. Let me save her. Mara whispered the final words, differently this time. The ritual shifted. I stepped into the center, took Stella's hand, and offered my soul in place of her magic. The darkness howled again, furious, disoriented. It lunged, but it found me. I screamed as it poured into me. Cold. Endless. Empty. Every part of me stretched to breaking, but I held on to one thing. One name. Stella. I remembered her. I loved her. I chose her. When the magic settled, the light faded. I collapsed. Stella caught me before I hit the ground. Her hands on my face. Her voice in my ears. Luna. Luna, stay with me. I opened my eyes, and for one terrifying second, I didn't recognize her. But then the bond pulsed, dim but still there. Still alive. Still ours. You didn't forget, I whispered. No, she said, tears falling freely. You gave me everything. Just don't let go. Never. Mara stood quietly by the edge of the circle. The darkness is sealed. Bound to you now, Luna. But it will not consume you. Not unless you lose her. Then I won't, I said. Not ever. Stella leaned in and kissed me, slow, reverent, like she was kissing a prayer. We stayed like that for a long time, hands tangled, hearts trembling, the forest watching silently around us. Later, when we finally rose from the circle, we didn't look back. We didn't need to. We'd rewritten the ending. Not through sacrifice, not through death, but through choice, through love. And the story wasn't over. Gravenmore looked the same, but it felt different. The people walked slower now, their conversations quieter, their gazes lingering just a little longer when we passed by. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was something heavier. The weight of a town that had sensed something crack open and had chosen not to speak of it. The kind of silence that grows roots. The kind of silence that knows how to lie. Stella and I didn't talk much about the ritual, not in words. We carried it in our bodies, in the way our hands always found each other in the dark, in the way I sometimes woke up gasping for breath, and she would already be watching me, already reaching for me, already whispering, "I've got you, I'm here." The bond still pulsed between us, quieter now, but no less real. We were more than lovers, more than soulmates. We were myth rewritten, blood repurposed, magic repainted in the shape of something tender. But peace didn't come easily. Not with the shadow living inside me. It didn't speak. It didn't scream. It watched. From somewhere deep beneath my skin, I could feel it coiled, waiting, not hungry but patient. Like a fire that had accepted the match wasn't ready to burn yet. I kept it at bay through routine. We rebuilt the bookstore Stella had dreamed of opening, tucked between the cafe and the pharmacy on Main Street. She painted the shelves by hand. I carved the counter from oak. She arranged the fiction alphabetically. I broke the rules and grouped the sapphic novels in their own corner. She let me. At night, we lit candles and read poetry to each other under the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Her voice always softened when she read Adrian Rich. Mine always caught when I heard her whisper the line, "We're not supposed to love like this." Sometimes, we touched each other like it was the first time. Sometimes like it was the last. But we were never careless. Because we knew. We knew. One wrong shift, one wrong break in the bond, and the thing inside me might wake up. I didn't tell her it was already getting stronger. That some nights, when I looked in the mirror, my eyes didn't quite look like mine. That my reflection smiled just a beat too late. That I heard my name whispered from the forest when I walked alone. I didn't want to burden her. She'd already given up everything once. I wouldn't let her do it again. But the town was changing too, and not all of it could be ignored. People had started disappearing, quietly, one by one. A hunter from the edge of town. A girl from the bakery. The sheriff's dog.
No one talked about it.
But the tension curled through the streets like mist. I felt it in my teeth. And then, one morning, someone came into the bookstore who didn't belong. She was tall, lean, her hair pulled back into a braid, so tight it looked like wire. She wore a leather coat too heavy for the weather and boots that made no sound on the floor. Her eyes were sharp. Familiar. Wrong. "Can I help you?" Stella asked from the counter. The woman looked at her, then at me, and smiled. "Just browsing." Her voice was smooth, like glass dragged over silk. I felt the bond between me and Stella tighten. I moved closer to her, without thinking. The woman's gaze flicked to my arm. "Nice mark," she said. I glanced down. I hadn't realized the black crescent under my skin was showing. It had darkened in the past few days, curling like smoke across my wrist. "Old tattoo." I lied. "Doesn't look old." Looks can be deceiving. She smiled wider. "You'd know." Then she turned and walked out, leaving the scent of pine and something burnt lingering in the air. I didn't chase her. I didn't need to. I knew what she was. Or, at least what she was tied to. The veil hadn't just left me marked, it had called others. Stella closed the store early that day. We sat in the back room, knees touching, the silence loud between us. "She's not brotherhood," I said. "No," Stella replied. "She's something else. Maybe a tracker. Maybe a vessel like you. But not like me," I whispered. "Because I'm still me." "Yes," she said, voice tight. "You're still mine." That night, we returned to Mara. She'd begun sleeping in the rebuilt ritual site, as if the earth could protect her better than walls. She listened to our story, silent as always, her fingers tracing the runes in the dirt like she was reading a language none of us would ever understand. When we finished, she finally spoke. "The veil is watching again," she said. "You closed it, but the scar remains. And anything with teeth will come sniffing. What do we do? I asked. We prepare, she said. Because this time, they won't be coming for Stella. They'll be coming for you.
Stella reached for my hand.
I held hers tighter. I won't let them take her, she said. Even if I have to bind myself again.
No, Mara said.
You can't. The bond has limits. Rewriting it too often thins it, distorts it. If you break it again, it might not come back. Then we fight, I said. We don't run. We don't hide. No, Mara said again. You learn. Because the only way to survive what's coming is for you to stop fearing the shadow inside you. I swallowed. You want me to use it? Not use, she said. Understand. The veil doesn't just destroy. It remembers. It reflects. If you learn how to read it, you'll see what it's trying to become. And if you're strong enough, you can shape it. I looked at Stella. Her expression was unreadable. You're afraid, I said. Of what happens if I like it. I'm afraid of what happens if it likes you too much, she said. But she didn't stop me. That night, I sat alone in the woods, knees pressed into the cold earth, and whispered my name into the dark. It whispered back. The first time, I truly felt the shadow move. It wasn't violent. It was curious. I was standing alone by the river where Stella and I had first kissed, the moon just a sliver in the sky, and I whispered my name into the wind again, like I had the night before. The response came from within. Not words. Not a voice. Just a shift, like something ancient and quiet had turned its head toward me. I didn't flinch. I didn't run. I let it look. I let it see me. The ground didn't shake. The wind didn't scream. But my heart did. I felt my pulse stutter, not from fear, but from understanding. This thing inside me wasn't just darkness. It wasn't evil. It was memory. It was remnant. It was what was left behind when the rift closed, and everything that couldn't escape was forced to find a home. And I was the door that never quite shut. I spent the next few days in the woods, under Mara's watch, learning how to call it, how to shape it. It wasn't easy. It resisted. It tested me. Some nights, it showed me things I didn't want to see. Myself, clawing through Stella's door the night I first shifted. My aunt crying alone on the porch after I disappeared for 3 days. Stella's face the moment she thought she might lose me forever. But other nights, it showed me her. Not just memories, but truths. Her bloodline, her ancestors, the binding magic that had been passed down to her like a curse disguised as duty. I saw her crying on the floor of the McAllister house long before we ever spoke, whispering my name like it was already written into her. I saw how deeply she had loved me even when she thought she never could. I started to understand why the veil had clung to me. Because I wanted to remember. I wanted to hold it all. The pain, the past, the power. I didn't want to be clean. I wanted to be whole. But power like that doesn't come without consequence. Stella knew it. She felt it every time I returned from the woods with my eyes darker, my voice quieter, my presence heavier. She didn't say anything at first. She just held me a little tighter at night, kissed me a little slower, like she was trying to memorize me before something changed. But one night, she broke. "Luna," she said, sitting across from me on the bookstore floor as we restocked shelves, "how much of you is still you?" I looked at her, really looked, and I saw the fear there, not of me, but of losing me. "All of me," I said. "But I'm not the same me you met." "I know," she whispered, "and I don't want to stop you. I don't want to reach for you one day and find a stranger." I crossed the space between us slowly, sank to my knees, took her face in my hands. "You won't," I said. "But if you ever do, if I ever start to disappear, I want you to be the one to bring me back." "How?" she asked. "Like this." I kissed her. Deep. Grounding. Like every heartbeat in me was calling hers. She kissed me back, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You're still here," she breathed. "Always." But the forest had its own plans. The woman from the bookstore returned 3 nights later. This time she didn't hide. She waited for me by the river. Her coat was soaked with rain, her eyes glowing faintly violet. "You've started," she said. "You've begun to feel it." Who are you? I asked. Someone like you. Chosen. Marked. Left behind. What do you want? To offer you a choice. She stepped closer. The veil is still watching. It remembers what you did, and it believes you can finish what was started. I'm not interested in opening anything. You misunderstand, she said. I'm not here to tempt you. I'm here to warn you. You're stabilizing the bond with the dark, Luna. But that balance won't last forever. One day, it will ask for something in return. What kind of something? The truth. I already know the truth. Not yours. Hers. I went cold. What are you talking about? She smiled, sad and slow. Ask your witch what she gave up when she pulled you back from the void. Ask her what she sacrificed to save you. And then she was gone. I ran. I didn't think. I just ran back to the house where Stella was waiting for me, curled on the couch, reading one of the old tomes from her family's collection. I barged in, soaked, breathless, shaking. What did you give up? She looked up slowly. Her face didn't change. Luna, don't lie to me.
Not now.
What did you give up? She stood, closed the book, set it down with deliberate care. You were gone. Your soul was fading. The bond was breaking. I had no choice. Tell me what you did. I gave them a memory, she whispered. One that mattered. Which one? The first time I knew I loved you. It hit me like a punch. You don't remember? Not clearly. I feel it. I feel the shape of it. But the moment is gone. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to look at me and see lack. I didn't want to be less than everything we were. I stepped forward, tears mixing with rain. You're not less. You're never less. But I am different. So am I. I took her hands, held them to my chest. Then let's make new memories. Let's rewrite the one they took. She nodded, eyes shining. Right now. Right now. We kissed in the rain. Slow.
Soft. Certain.
Not because we were whole, but because we chose each other anyway. The darkness stirred inside me. But this time, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a witness. And for the first time, I felt it pulse in rhythm with the bond. The full moon rose for the last time. I felt it before I saw it. Low and heavy in the sky, swollen with weight, not just of light, but of memory, of choice, of everything Stella and I had carried to this final night. The wind was still, the forest breathless, and yet every branch seemed to lean forward, listening. The bond between us pulsed steadily now, not desperate, not strained, but strong, like a muscle that had been torn and rebuilt. But inside me, the shadow stirred. It didn't rage. It didn't scream. It simply waited, as if it too knew what this night meant. Stella and I stood at the edge of the old clearing, hand in hand, dressed in black and silver, the runes around us glowing faintly from the magic we'd poured into them. Mara stood beside the ritual circle, older now, more worn, but her eyes still sharp with wisdom and unspoken grief. Are you ready? She asked. We've been ready for a long time, Stella said. We just didn't know it. I looked at her, heart full, throat tight. Whatever happens, I won't let go.
You don't have to, she said.
Not this time. We stepped into the circle. The air around us shimmered like heat rising from stone. The moon reached its apex, its light painting everything in silver. I felt the shadow inside me stretch, uncoil. Open. It rose not to fight, but to be seen. A shape pulled from my bones, dark and fluid, a version of myself that had waited far too long to speak. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't run. I met its eyes. They were mine. Not monstrous. Not cruel. Just unfinished. Speak, I whispered. What do you want? The shadow tilted its head. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it. Not destruction. Completion. Of what?
Of you.
Of her.
Of this.
Stella stepped closer, never breaking the circle. It's not an enemy, she said softly. It's memory. It's every version of you that broke and healed and broke again. It doesn't want control. It wants peace. I turned to Mara. How do we give it that? You already have, she said. Now you let it go. But the shadow didn't fade. It stepped toward me. I felt it press against my skin like a second heartbeat. And I understood this wasn't about banishing. It was about accepting. I opened my arms. The shadow moved into me. Quiet.
Warm.
Like falling backward into a memory that no longer hurt. And when it was done, I stood taller. Straighter. Not heavier, but whole. Stella reached for me. You're glowing, she whispered. So are you, I said. She smiled. Then let's finish this. We turned to Mara, who began the final binding rite, not to close a rift, not to expel a curse, but to anchor us to the life we had fought for. The runes ignited in gold and blue and violet. The circle spun with wind and light. Stella and I pressed our foreheads together, eyes closed, hearts wide open. Repeat after me, Mara said. I am no longer what they feared. I whispered it. Stella did too. I am what we chose to become. I am what we chose to become. Bound not by pain, but by love. Bound not by pain, but by love. By fire. By fire. By moonlight. By moonlight. By the girl who saw me when I couldn't see myself. And when I said that, my voice broke. Because it was always her. From the beginning. Not just the girl who I wanted. The girl who saved me. Who chose me. Who never stopped. Even when she should have. The bond between us erupted, not violently, not explosively. It bloomed. Like a star at the edge of the night. Light poured around us, through us, from us. I saw her past. She saw mine. I felt her love, wild and sharp and honest. She felt mine, raw and aching and endless. And when the magic faded, we stood there in silence, hearts still beating in time, breathing the same air, holding the same future. Mara stepped back. It's done. Are we still? I looked at Stella, not sure how to finish the sentence. Yes, she said. We're still us. We left the woods together, the sky beginning to lighten, the stars slipping quietly away. In the weeks that followed, the town began to breathe again. The disappearances stopped. The air cleared. People began to speak of light instead of shadows. No one asked what had happened.
No one needed to.
The town had always known more than it said. Our bookstore thrived. We added a section just for stories that didn't end in silence or fire or loss. People came from other towns just to sit in the reading nook Stella painted by hand, deep blue, with a quote over the wall that read, "Sometimes, love is the magic that saves you." Some nights, we still returned to the woods. Not because we were haunted, but because we weren't anymore. We'd walk barefoot into the clearing and lie in the grass, fingers interlaced, listening to the wind in the leaves. Do you still feel it? She asked once. The shadow. I nodded. Sometimes. But it's quiet now. Good, she whispered. Because I need all of you here. I turned to her. Every version. Every lifetime. She smiled, kissed me softly, and said, "Then come home." And I did. Not because the story was over, but because we'd finally written an ending that chose us back. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support